Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ezekiel. This morning we're going to start a study of Ezekiel. I'm going to have the introduction today, and then our next study will be we'll get right into chapter 1 and go on with it. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background on what's going on in Jerusalem and at the time of Ezekiel, and what led up to his prophecy and what the prophecy is all about. All right, so Ezekiel's prophecy is for Judah, what has been called the Southern Kingdom, if you've ever heard that term. It was a country, I will call it a country, but it was made up of two tribes of Israel, Judah and Benjamin, and they were deep into spiritual apostasy. Judah as a nation existed due to civil war when the northern kingdom came into existence. There was all of Israel was made up of the 12 tribes. There was a civil war, and the country divided. 10 tribes went to the north, called the northern kingdom, and Israel, that was called Israel. Benjamin and the tribe of Benjamin and Judah went to the south. They were the two tribes that made up the nation of Judah. And as it turns out, both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom were guilty of spiritual apostasy. Their worship of God was just not what it should be. It was not even close, as a matter of fact. The northern kingdom was made up of the 10 tribes, as I said. They lived in total spiritual apostasy, and they were taken captive by Assyria and assimilated into the nations in 722 BC. The southern kingdom, Judah, was made up of the two tribes, as I said, Judah and Benjamin, and their apostasy was even worse than that of the northern kingdom. For a very informative history of how the northern kingdom and southern kingdom came into existence, I want you to check out my video. It's found in the introduction to Hosea. Now I'm going to put a link to that in the comment section if you want to go look at it. But to really understand this book, you need to understand how those two kingdoms fit together, how far apart they were taken in, how many years they were taken apart. They were taken into captivity by different nations, by the way. But you can find that in the playlist on Hosea. You will find some good insight to the apostasy of Israel, which was the northern kingdom, and most likely you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked by what was going on in the nation of God's chosen people. When I studied Ezekiel on my own, I was shocked. And I told my best friend at the time that I will never teach this book, Ezekiel. And as time went on, I found myself doing exactly that, teaching Ezekiel. And here I am teaching it again. But you're going to see that the things that are in this book are beyond believable. But I assure you they were true. I'm going to put the link to that introduction to Hosea in the comment section of this video. So hopefully after we finish this introduction, you can go check out that link and look through it. It's fairly lengthy. It was a whole lesson. It was probably close to 45 minutes or so as an introduction to the book of Hosea when we studied it. But it's for both. It's for both. It shows the kings. Well, I'm not going to try to tell you what it is. It's just an introduction. It's going to give you a good idea of what was going on at the time and where their spiritual apostasy was. I'm also going to put in the comments section a link to an animated video. It's by a group called John 832, I believe it is. I hope I didn't get that wrong, but I'm going to put a link in the comments section that is an animated video of Ezekiel's vision, which is found in chapter 1 of Ezekiel. When we study through Ezekiel chapter 1, you're going to say, whoa, what is all of this? And you're going to say, it's so involved and so detailed and so really wonderful. It's impossible to get in your mind what you're reading. These people that have made this video have done a wonderful job. When I taught this book the first time, I watched that video probably 5 or 6 times before I taught the lesson. I actually got some TVs and took them in the classroom, and we watched that video in the classroom. And before I taught the lesson, we watched the video and we went right to the scripture. And I'd watched it so many times. I watched it so many times to make sure that video was accurate. When you study chapter 1 of Ezekiel, you're going to see what I'm saying. It's very involved. You can't picture it. It is so involved you can't picture it in your mind. These people did a wonderful job making this video. It's animated, and you'll be able to see what Ezekiel saw as best we can. We didn't see the vision, but we're seeing a very good account of that vision put on the screen. So I'll put that link to that video in the comment section as well, and hopefully by the time we get to do our study on chapter 1, you'll have had time to go through and watch both of those videos, or either one. That video is not nearly as long as the introduction to Hosea was, but it's 20 or 25 minutes probably. But it's a wonderful video, and I really want to encourage you to watch it. Okay, Ezekiel. Isaiah, now I say Ezekiel, and then my next word is Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet. Ezekiel was a prophet to Judah. Isaiah was a prophet to Judah as well. But the people of Judah were laboring under 4 false assumptions. Before I get into what they are, the people of Israel, the people of Judah, the people of the northern kingdom, the people of the southern kingdom hated the prophets. They didn't believe what they said. They didn't like their message, and they just dismissed them pretty much out of hand. Isaiah was no different. At the time he was prophesying, they were laboring under 4 false assumptions. These are not assumptions Isaiah was preaching. It's what the people believed, and Isaiah was preaching against, as well as Ezekiel was preaching against. Okay, the first one was that God's covenant with Israel was indissoluble. He made it. He made the covenant. He can't get out of it. We're protected by it. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world. We're protected. The second assumption was that Israel was faithful to the covenant. In their mind, Israel was faithful to the covenant by being faithful to observing ritual and sacrifice. Meaning, in their minds, this is all they had to do. I just got to go to church on Sunday. That's it. I fulfill my responsibility. I just got to go to temple. I just got to just go in there, raise my hands, say my prayers, go through my routines that we do in church, in the temple, do my sacrifices, and that's it, without any regard for their relationship with God. But we followed the law, we're good. The third thing was that the day of the Lord would be victory for God and Israel. So the day of the Lord, God's going to get his victory, and guess what? Israel's just going to be pulled right along with behind him. So we're protected. That's all there is. We're protected. And here's the fourth thing. God would never allow capture or destruction of Jerusalem. Now we know for a fact that Jerusalem was destroyed, and we're going to see that very well when we go through the book of Ezekiel. But why would they think that Jerusalem would not be restored? Why would he think, not be destroyed? Why would they think that? What is in Jerusalem? The temple. Who lives in the temple? God. Jerusalem is his city. The temple is his house, and that's where he lives. And so we are protected. Jerusalem will never be destroyed. So those are the four assumptions that they were living under. And I might add that Judah had already witnessed the destruction of the northern kingdom. They were, I think I've already mentioned it once, they were captured by the Assyrians in 722 BC, and they were assembled into the nations. They just ceased to be seen. They just disappeared. So Judah, the southern kingdom, saw that happen to them, but they're saying that can't happen to us. Isaiah, Ezekiel, this message you've got, we just don't need to even listen to you. Okay? Because they had seen what happened up there, but they know how things are. They've got these four things that they're believing in that I just mentioned to you. Now, I want you to remember that Isaiah preached for 40 years. I think it's in Scripture. It's in 40 years with no appreciable response. No appreciable results. Nobody believed the prophets. It was a very dangerous time. I'm sorry, it's a very prosperous time for Judah. It was a very prosperous time for the northern kingdom as well. Before they were taken captive, they were like, everybody had, a 3-chariot garage, lots of jewelry, lots of money around. There was even the poor people had plenty to eat. It was just a good time, yet they were taken into captivity. The same thing was going on in Judah. They were wealthy people, very prosperous. Now, I want you to know and think about this. When a nation enjoys material prosperity for a long period of time, what happens? They get complacent. They get to feeling entitled. They get to the point where they're believing that they're blessed by God beyond any form of reasonable assessments. It's almost like we've got our own sets. They had their own set of assumptions. These four assumptions where God's protecting them. That's true of any nation. We've been protected by God all these years because we are a nation founded on Christian beliefs. When a nation enjoys material prosperity for a long period of time, it falls into moral and spiritual decay. When a nation enjoys material prosperity, it falls into moral and spiritual decay. All right. This was the situation in Judah. They lived for 150 years, totally oblivious to true worship and awe of the living God. They had, remember one of the points I mentioned up there, they felt like their observance of ritual and sacrifice was all they had to do. Their actual relationship with God was unimportant. We did what he said we had to do. Okay? So they were, for 150 years, and that 150 years, the 150 years that followed the capture and captivity of the northern kingdom, they continued to get worse. For 150 years, they kept getting worse and worse. Okay, so what can I tell you? Let's see, the time of Isaiah's prophecy was around 750 BC. And he prophesied, or that 150 years that I was talking about of the time of Southern Kingdom getting worse was measured from around 750 BC to when the Nebuchadnezzar's assault on Jerusalem began. That was January 15th, 587 BC. Now I laugh because Ezekiel's vision is laden with dates throughout the book. Whenever something happens, a lot of times he'll say in the 5th year of this, the kingdom of that, whatever. We can put a date on it, and they've got a date on the day that Nebuchadnezzar started his attack on Jerusalem to be January 15th, 587 BC. It's roughly 150 years. They were living in disbelief that that was actually going to happen. And there it is on January 15, 587 BC is when it actually started happening, and it didn't take long once it started. Okay, so that's kind of the situation. We're talking about total spiritual apostasy. Now, when we go through the book of Ezekiel, you're going to see some things that were going on in the temple that are almost what they are. They're unbelievable. You know, when I studied Ezekiel the first time, I was saying, I was shocked. I've told you that. I studied that book and I was saying, this is God's chosen people. How does this happen? And when we go through here, you will be shocked as well. If you haven't studied this book before, you'll see what I'm talking about. You will be very surprised at the things that you see. So that's what was going on. Now, Ezekiel, the man, he was a priest, and he was the son of a priest. His father was a priest, and his name was Buzi, B-U-Z-I, Buzi or Buzzy. It doesn't matter. We're not going to be calling his name anymore. Anyway, but Ezekiel was a priest, and he was the son of a priest. Now, we don't know much about his personal life. His major role was in the last days of Judah's history. Ezekiel's role was in the last days of Judah's history. His prophetic ministry was served while he was in Babylonian captivity. This entire book of Ezekiel is a series of visions of what was going to happen to Jerusalem, and he was in captivity under Babylon rule while this book was written, while he gave these prophecies. He was taken captive in the second of 3 waves of people taken out of Jerusalem, and that was around 597 BC. And when I say that, you'll remember from your study of Daniel that Daniel and his friends were taken to Babylon. They were probably in the first wave, or they might have been in the second wave. All that runs together in my head, but there were 2 or 3 waves of people that were taken out. Ezekiel was in one of those waves, probably the second wave. His ministry continues until at least 573 BC. But we do not know how it ended, how he ended, how his life came to an end, or what his final fate was. Okay, there's not a lot we know about him. He served his entire ministry in Babylon, in captivity. He was married, we know, but there's no mention of children. Okay, now that's all I want to give you today for the introduction. I want to remind you that of those 2 videos that will be in the link, in the comment. The links to those 2 videos will be in the comment section of the video on the introduction. So after you listen to this, go check out the comments over the period of the next few days. Try to watch them if you can. Um, I think they're equally important for different reasons. The link on that animated video of chapter 1 is going to show a graphic presentation of what Ezekiel saw, what his witness was. And that chapter 1 we're going to see is the vision of God coming for Ezekiel. It's part of his call. It's the part where God is coming to get him. We see the rest of his call, his instructions are going to be in chapter 2 and chapter 3. But that chapter 1 is where he sees this gigantic storm coming on the horizon, and it eventually just gets closer and closer and just totally engulfs him. Then he sees all this stuff, and you will be very impressed by this video, and it's going to help you understand what's in that chapter 1. The other video I just want to remind you is an introduction to the book of Hosea, which applies to this as well. And so I think you'll get a good idea of the apostasy and the attitudes of the people and what was going on in both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. I think it'll be good for you to go through that if you get a chance. Okay, well, that's all I have for you today. So our next study will be chapter 1. Thank you for being with me today.